Hi, my name's Lorraine Bortros, and I'm here to talk to you about Info 890 Capstone Project. And the Capstone project I worked on was Omeka Repository Thesis Project at New York Institute of Technology, better known as NYIT. The learning objectives that I focused on for this project were archiving physical theses to digital items, cataloging them using Library of Congress and Cersei Workflows application with OCLC Holdings. The OCLC Holdings allows a user to search in the WorldCat catalog and then retrieve that item by logging into their institution. I also added metadata to the repository items in Omeka, and we'll discuss that later on. And research data about data harvesting with the Omeka repository. What did I accomplish during this capstone? Well, during the 10-week capstone project, I expected to gain valuable skills pertaining to cataloging and archiving, and I would say that I definitely did. What made this capstone project successful was that I focused on a targeted number of items digitized and entered into the Omeka repository website, as well as adding metadata to a target number of items. And this was using Dublin Core. And Dublin Core, as many of you probably studied, is a standard for metadata, and Omeka provides a plugin which makes the process quite a bit easier than having to create it from scratch. The third objective was to work on the plugin for the metadata harvesting. Sorry. Okay, then I'm going to show you some examples of what I accomplished. This is our NYIT catalog. It's called Bearcat. And as you can see, I was able to get up to 1,879 titles. And I didn't do all of this during the 10 weeks, but I was able to catalog approximately 400 items. And on the right is the record itself. And if you took the cataloging class, some of this will look familiar to you. The 035 field for OCLC is what I was talking about. These are unique numbers so that when people search for items in a catalog, they can retrieve them from different institutions. And that was sort of one of my learning curves, was to make sure that all the records, they were MARC records that I was working with, had these numbers in them, as well as the call number, which is using Library of Congress. And then we have the author field 100 and the 245 field, which is the title of the thesis. There's many other fields. I won't go through all of them. Oh, sorry. Okay, so the next slide here shows the digital repository. So now we're on a website, which is Omeka, and it's showing you the items that are available. And I've just brought up one thesis to show you, the Dublin Core, shows the title and the creator and then the date and publisher, as well as the subject field, which comes from the Library of Congress record. So there were a lot of challenges about how to do this, and I used some research just looking at different institutions' theses and how they had a repository set up. Drexel has one. Post has one, and many other schools have them, and they all use different tools and different ways of going about it. But generally speaking, the metadata is pointing to specific fields like the title and the author and the date and the publisher. So I just use that as a template to determine which Dublin Core elements I would use on these items. Some of the setbacks that happened, definitely deadlines and time. They were the main focus of what went wrong. The quality of the work, I think I discussed this in the week 5 post, but the students were helping early on in the project to take the pages from the theses and run them through the Canon copier to create a PDF file. And that was great, but however, they weren't really checking to make sure that the pages were in order or that something didn't get missed, because pages stick together and things like that. So the bulk of the time that I spent in the last 10 weeks was going through the PDF files and just fixing errors that occurred, if I could. That one issue is that some of the items were copy ones only, and so there's no other copy, and those got discarded. So nothing can be fixed if that's the case. So the other setback was just setting realistic goals. I think early on I put high numbers on how many items I could catalog and get into the repository, and I did modify that during the mid-project time frame. And so I think I'm going to reach all my goals now, which is great. But I would just say, generally speaking, when we do projects, we have to, really be realistic that things crop up and that timelines are going to change. And I know we've discussed that in this class. The professional practice and what I've learned during this process, I think is very vast and a wonderful repertoire of things I can add to my resume. Writing procedural documentation, Library of Congress, bibliographic records for cataloging, and the Dublin Core metadata. And of course how Omeka repository works, and just generally speaking repositories for digital items to be viewed and organized. And then lastly, the data harvesting. Omeka has a plugin, OAI-PMH, and that allows other institutions to harvest data from that repository. So it's basically an open source sharing resource. And the idea is that in the future, people who are doing research can use this tool to share their data. And the main focus for me on that was just to provide some sort of information about how that can be done within Omeka. And I have to say, this capstone project was really fun, and I enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed my presentation about it, and that you all have a wonderful career ahead of you. And congratulations for making it to the end of this. Ciao.